Welcome to this reader feedback edition of Forthright and my grandma's column titled The New Normal.
So this column was published October 14th of 2021. It is day 592 of Washington's state of emergency declared by Governor Jay Inslee on February 29, 2020. An emergency is dictionary defined as a serious, unexpected, and often dangerous situation requiring immediate action. But it's no longer an emergency as defined by common sense. A serious situation, but nothing unexpected. This is the new normal. Continuing to operate under a state of emergency is unhealthy for both individuals and society. The human body is not designed to operate in a state of constant fear. Chronic stress, according to the Mayo Clinic website and any other credible source of health information, leads to anxiety, depression, digestive problems, headaches, muscle tension and pain, heart disease, heart attack, high blood pressure and stroke, sleep problems, memory and concentration impairment, and weight gain. Living daily without daily fear is a matter of self-preservation. Healthy humans learn to distinguish the unexpected dangerous situations requiring immediate action from chronic ordinary challenges. Representative governments need to make the same distinction lest they become authoritarian societies operating under one-man rule. And state government has essentially been operating under one-man rule since February 29, 2020. If the government of the state of Washington is unable to deal with a now ordinary and endemic virus without suspending rules and regular order, then we need to fix the regular order. Continuing under a state of emergency is like listening to an overly sensitive smoke alarm while you're cooking dinner. You'll either ignore it or disconnect it, but it no longer has any effect on your actions. Jackie Murray was dealing with a hypersensitive alarm on Wednesday, only she wasn't in a kitchen. Murray is a proud member of the Teamsters Union, and she answered her phone from the cab of a quarry truck. The incessant beep, beep, beep in my ear sounded like a backup alarm. Nope, it's an error code and it won't stop until the truck is rebooted, said Murray. The crew is working on the expansion of the Davenport Municipal Airport runway, putting in 5 10-hour days a week as the crew attempts to finish before winter. The other 2 available trucks are out of commission. It's too cold and would take too long to go through the reboot, so Murray is stuck. I warned my coworkers I will be insane by the end of the day and be careful I don't take you with me, joked Murray. It's a fair warning. Emergency alarms are designed to draw our attention and urge us to immediate action. When no immediate action is either available or necessary, the incessant beeping may make even the most congenial Teamster cranky. Instead of a 10-hour work shift, Governor Inslee's state of emergency is approaching 20 months. And unlike Murray, we have no idea when we get to clock out. The movable goalposts have completely disappeared off the field. First, there was stay home, stay healthy, and 2 weeks to stop the spread. Then a series of reopening plans with phases that never seem to have an endpoint. Now there's no plan at all on the Department of Health website and no answer to the question of what metrics Governor Inslee will be consulting to make his decision. The DOH media briefing on October 13 had no answer to the question of when the never-ending emergency ends, other than that the governor is always looking at the data. It would be nice if he'd let everyone else in on what the data that might be, or at least bring a bipartisan group of legislators into his closed-door huddles to make it a team effort. It's hard to get excited about yet another beep, beep, beeping briefing telling everyone to wash their hands. Most of us learned that in kindergarten. Presentations were predictable and the lack of interest was evident from the low participation by the media. Briefings used to draw more than a dozen reporters. This one had only 6 queued up. The sense of alarm has been disconnected. Our governor thinks he is the quarterback who just won the Super Bowl and the, quote, one person in the state with the capability to save those lives, unquote. He's wrong. It's time to return to normal governance and let the rest of the team back in the game so we really are all in this together. So the first response I got to that column was from a friend who's got way more knowledge about sports than I do, who said, nice work today with the football analogies, reminding us of how Gov-tator Inslee seems to see himself as Tom Brady-ish in his role as the state's quarterback. Paul, I didn't go there because I don't know football well enough for the extended analogy, but thanks for the encouragement. There were a number of really positive emails, but I like to pick out a naysayer, and this one was from Kay Olsufka. who wrote, "We could have been out of this pandemic a long time ago if everyone would have just gotten vaccinated when it was available and worn masks in crowds. Thank goodness Governor Inslee cares about keeping more people from dying from COVID. Your column just feeds the craziness, in my opinion." Well, Kay and I exchanged a few messages and we still disagree on some of the points. We need to embrace, in my opinion, we need to embrace life fully, not just run from disease. And it does make a difference how we govern ourselves. The medical community, at least behind the sensational headlines, is now discussing this as a seasonal endemic coronavirus. It will move in waves, different timing in different countries and different states, but the pandemic phase is over, and it is the new normal. There were far more positive responses like this one. Tammy, who wrote, "I never write things like this, but just wanted to say thank you, and you're very right on in your piece in the Spokesman regarding Inslee and the never-ending, everlasting state of emergency. I do think he is acting as the lone person who knows best to handle this, when instead a group approach would be so much better. He doesn't know or often forgets that the east side and west sides are very different." She also writes, "I also realized that my overall feeling of ugh and depression could be from this constant down push feeling of the pandemic." Tammy's comments bring us back to the reason I invited my granddaughter to join me today, besides the fact that I am visiting her in North Dakota, and the question of the never-ending emergency and how it's making us feel. Just a second, Sam. Okay. Back to the question of the never-ending emergency and how it's making us feel. I asked my favorite roving reporter, Genevieve Meier of Minot, North Dakota, for the 6th grade perspective from her friends and also from her teenage brother. So the questions were, first, about emergencies. What is an emergency? And could anyone give you an example until how they knew when the emergency was over? What did you find out when you asked your friends? The first question, what's an emergency?
A fire drill and getting out on time.
Okay, fire drill.
When someone that needs help, or if a building is on fire, or when you lacerate your kidney.
Yes, well, that last, when you lacerate your kidney, is an emergency because she did that on the trampoline this last year. So how do you know when the emergency is over?
The alarm goes off or the firefighters come. Okay. When the person or thing was saved, or when the doctor says you can go on the trampoline again.
Yeah, so when you're healed, the emergency is over.
Mm-hmm.
Those were pretty simple. It's pretty straightforward. There's an emergency and we know it's over when it's been dealt with. The other question I asked is a little deeper, and I asked, how has or how is all this COVID stuff that you hear making you feel? What does it make you think about right now?
Makes Tenley more aware of her surroundings.
Okay, that's a good thing to be aware of your surroundings.
Mm-hmm.
You said
when Gabe was in Minnesota and he had to wear a mask on the ice because he plays hockey.
That would be Genevieve's older brother Gabe, and that's his lasting memory, was having to wear a mask while playing ice hockey, which didn't seem to make a lot of sense to him.
And it doesn't really affect me.
And that was your answer when I asked you how it has affected you, which is interesting. Now I realize that part of that is because we're in North Dakota, a little bit more laid back, not so much tension as some kids have been put under. I really would be happy to hear from some families who are feeling tension a whole lot more than mine has. And how are your kids doing? Ask them, how is all this affecting them? I know when I was a child, we had the Cold War laying over our heads. And I thinking back, I realized that this incident happened during the Cuban Missile Crisis, and I was in the 1st grade. We all had to hide, an entire 2 first grades full of kids had to hide in a room smaller than this. And they turned the lights off. It was the storeroom. And so we were all supposed to be very quiet. 50 kids in a very small room with the lights off are supposed to be really quiet. And what I thought we were doing was we were hiding from paratroopers that were going to land in the parking lot of the grocery store across from us. And I thought that was a silly place to hide. But I didn't really get all tense over it. And when I asked my mother this question, because she was about Genevieve's age in 1941, 1942, what did she remember about the tension that would have been in the air? What she said was she remembered having to put blackout drapes over the windows so that nobody could see the town. And that didn't make a whole lot of sense to her either, because clearly you could still see the town because there's the moon and it's just obvious. So I think it's a good question to take to your kids. Sit down, ask them what they're thinking, what they're feeling, what they're remembering right now, and what stories are they going to tell in another 20, 40, or 60 years. Thank you for joining me today, Genevieve, and for asking your friends what they thought.
You're welcome.
And thank you for joining us on Forthright.